right, welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Sowers for DoSpace's 2024 Sustainability Summit. We are on to our noon hour presentation with Bridget Slavin and Sam Heiser from the Omaha Public Power District. Bridget is the Sustainability Program Manager at OPPD. In 2023, OPPD created a new business unit entirely focused on this priority for the Public Power District. And Bridget supports the development and implementation of their sustainability strategy by developing strategic initiatives in support of specific carbon and cost/avoidance goals. Sam is a project manager at OPPD, focusing on alternative energy solutions. Sam develops and manages programs that enable customers to access renewable energy, either by installing wind and solar systems on their home or businesses participating in OPPD's various renewable energy programs. I'm happy to see what we can find out about what OPPD is doing for us and for businesses. Take it away.
All right, thank you, Michael, and welcome everybody. We're Bridget. I'm Bridget, and I have Sam with me from OPPD. So today we just kind of wanted to go over an overview of OPPD, some growth and new generation updates, a little bit about sustainability and environmental affairs business unit, the business unit I work in. Some of our playbooks. Sam will go over customer-owned generation as well as a program called Renewable Choice. So this may be a refresh for some of you, but for others, I just want to lay a foundation of who we are. We have a mission as OPPD to provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive services to our customers. As a public power district, we have a publicly elected board of directors that governs us. Our service territory spans about 5,000 square miles, all the way from the Kansas border to north of Blair into Burke County. We are a unique utility, even in the state. We serve more than 50 communities at retail, a few at wholesale, and overall have a population of about 850,000. Our generation capability today is more than 2,600 megawatts, and you can see some of the diverse mix operating and online today highlighted within our footprint. A little fun fact for everybody, Nebraska is the only state that is entirely public power. So 2024, if you guys have heard Javier, our CEO, speak before, he refers to 2024 as the year of growth, the year of completion at OPPD. The work that's already underway and will continue for the next 10 years makes this an exciting time for OPPD as we work to meet the region's exponential growth. For example, the current infrastructure that stretches across our service territory is expected to need to double in the next 10 years. OPPD has not experienced this kind of growth in electricity demand since 1970s when central air conditioning became widespread. We expect this current period to be similar as customers increasingly rely on electricity to power their lives, from laptops to electric vehicles to refrigerators. The economy is going through a rapid pace of electrification, which will drastically increase in the coming decades. So OPPD personnel are already working on projects to serve this growth. And for example, we've got 2 new gas generation facilities. We're always looking for wind and solar farms. We had a large solar farm open up earlier this year. So those gas facilities are Turtle Creek Station and our Standing Bear Lake. They are expected to be completed by early next year and running. So currently we have 16 turbines in our generation fleet, and by early next year we will have an additional 11, so 27 operational turbines for our service territory. We also had Platteview Solar. We had a ribbon cutting earlier this year. It's 81 megawatts. So that has been amazing. We have a document called Power with Purpose, and the plan is to add those 600 megawatts of natural gas along with the 81 megawatts of that solar, as well as many more renewable energy options within the next 10 years. This plan is also allowing OPPD to retire 3 of its oldest coal-based generation units at North Omaha Station, and that will reduce our overall carbon dioxide emissions by approximately 30%. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of go into our business unit. We started in 2023 when our VP of Sustainability Environmental came to OPPD, Cliff Fleener, and it really goes to show OPPD saw a need for sustainability and environmental to be their own business unit. They used to be under public affairs. And these are just some of the areas that our business unit covers. We cover air, water, wildlife, waste, and then our sustainability program. So we really cover any area that may be needed in terms of environmental. Little bit about how we are approaching our program and how we plan to grow over the next few years, really focusing on that compliance to risk management to sustainability, following the UN global stages model, focusing again, compliance, we're pretty strong there. Resource optimization, we're always looking for ways to optimize our resources. Market differentiation, and then purpose-driven. Purpose-driven really leads us to our net zero commitment, which is the guiding star to every decision that we make. In our efforts, we have released sustainability and environmental playbooks. These playbooks have been developed in basic jargon so that any of our employees can pick one up and read it. The environmental playbook is our environmental management system, while the sustainability playbook kind of acts as the how-to and the establishment of green teams across our facilities. These standards stated in these playbooks are mandatory for all of our sites. We have been going around training all of our employees. And starting next year, the plan is to make these publicly available along with a sustainability report. So in Q1. Within these playbooks, we talk a lot about standards and goals. So I just wanted to touch on a few of those today. The first one, we have an operational scope 1 carbon goal around mobile source vehicle emissions. So we're saying by 2040, right now, we're going to reduce our scope 1 mobile source emissions by about 40%. We did a feasibility study in 2023 and early 2024, and we are going to be moving away from gasoline vehicles with a mix of electric, propane, and diesel by 2040. It will reduce our costs in vehicles and maintenance by about 1.3 million. It increases in efficiency. It'll simplify our maintenance, and it'll help us again towards that net zero. Our other operational goal is a waste diversion goal. By 2030, we are aiming to achieve a diversion rate of 40%. Last year, we were at 21.78%. Through this, we are partnering with a mobile compactor company that is saving us plenty on having our own compactors or renting them. We've been able to reduce our hauls by about half because of this. We're focused more on recycling, and we're still working hard on finding solutions for those hard to recycle, such as tires, wooden reels, ceramics, our wooden poles. And then we also have our water initiative that kind of coincides with our waste diversion goal, as we have slowly been replacing water coolers with permanent reverse osmosis filtered water stations at our centers and generation facilities. And year to date, we've eliminated about 285 5-gallon PET jugs annually. And on the right is just an example of some of the signage that we will have up for our facilities. Real quick, I just want to focus because we talk about how North Omaha will lead to a 30% reduction in our overall carbon emissions. Well, that is still true from our initial calculations, but to date, we have actually reduced our carbon emissions by 40.6. We're expecting around 50% by 2030. So I just wanted to highlight that scope 1 is obviously the largest, and that is where our generation fleet falls. And then previously in the in the playbook section, I did mention the development of green teams. That is something that we have been working hard at getting to all of our facilities. They are the grassroots program involving our actual employees that are doing the day-to-day jobs at our centers and facilities. My team can go out and determine any types of projects and savings, but they know what they're doing day to day. So we value their input quite a bit. And we've added a little friendly competition with a sustainability award each year. So with that, I will turn it over to Sam for some customer-owned generation.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget. I'm going to give an overview of our customer-owned generation program and what that is. But as a general rule, when I say customer-owned generation, I'm mostly talking about rooftop solar for residential customers is the vast majority of what we see. But it also includes other things. Wind turbines, we have a few of. We even have one very small hydroelectric facility. It also includes other generations such as diesel backup or natural gas backup for some of our large customers who need that. You can go ahead, Bridget. This is a look at what this growth has been like. As you can see, up to about 2020, we were seeing less than 100 applications per year. It started to pick up pretty significantly in 2021, where we probably tripled the amount that we saw before it absolutely exploded there in 2022. We saw 733 applications for customer-owned generation. As I said, the vast majority of those were for residential rooftop solar. It started to slow down in years since 2022. As you can see in 2023, we had about 500. 2024, this is year to date through, I think, October. So I have a couple months left, but we're looking to be under 200 this year. So sort of a reversion back to the mean in some ways, but it's definitely more of an interest to a lot of OPPD customers to put rooftop solar on their homes or businesses. This is just an overview of where a lot of these systems are. So the blue dots represent 2022 and the red dots represent 2023 installs. As you can see, it's mostly focused on the metro, which isn't surprising. That's where most of our customers are, but there's also a fair amount that are kind of out in rural south of Omaha areas as well. So pretty good look at kind of where all of this is being installed. Give a quick overview of what this looks like. So customers who want to install this will put these panels on their roofs. Usually, sometimes they can put them on a ground mount system if they have enough space for that. Those will connect to an inverter, which turn the power from the panels from DC to AC power, which is what our grid uses, and that interconnects with the customer's electrical system in their house. So if they're cooking or their air conditioner is running at the time when they're producing electricity with their panels, then it will use that instantaneously without going to OPPD at all. OPPD does have a net metering program, so any customers who export energy to us can get credit for that. I don't want to explain net metering, can get kind of complicated, but in effect, it allows customers to use the grid as a battery in a way. So if they export during the day, they can pull that energy off of the grid at night, essentially for free at retail rates. You can go ahead, Bridget. Just give a few examples of what this can look like. So it varies, and how noticeable this stuff is. So the top left example there, it's dark panels on a fairly light roof, so you can see those pretty clearly. The bottom picture there is, a little bit less noticeable. There's dark panels on a somewhat darker roof, so it's more hidden. And then the top right is a Tesla solar roof, which is actually built into the shingles. Essentially, there become solar panels, and it's obviously much harder to see. Those systems are very expensive, but they're becoming more popular as well. And those are good if you want to. Some HOAs have rules around when solar can and can't be installed, so it can come in handy there as well. COG website, so we have a lot of information for our customers who want to add solar to their home or business. This has been around for a long time, but we just gave it a facelift here in the last month or so, and that's what this screenshot is. So if you go to oppd.com/COG for customer-owned generation, we'll have a lot of really good information there. Includes a page on how to go solar, sort of explaining what I'm explaining now about how this process works and some of the benefits. Net metering, have a nice video on there explaining how net metering works, and also a picture like I showed in the last couple slides and a video as well explaining. So a lot of options there to understand that. It can be challenging to kind of wrap your head around. Solar incentives, we do have a solar rebate for any of our customers who install a qualifying solar system with one of our trade allies. Trade allies is a group of contractors, which I'll talk about here in a minute. Anybody who's interested in this, I would strongly recommend going and check out our website. We have a lot of frequently asked questions, answers to those frequently asked questions on the website, and we add more of those all the time as we get more questions. We also have a solar calculator, which I don't have a slide for, but it allows you to put in your address and you can get kind of an estimate on what do you expect the payback to be for a solar system, maybe give you some idea of what size it should be. Disclaimer, that's kind of a rough first cut is what I tell customers most of the time. There's a lot of contractors and installers that'll have much more robust calculation systems, but it's a good kind of place to start to give you an idea of what your expectations should be for something like this. Jared mentioned earlier, it can be challenging to see what you would call a good payback by most standards for solar in the Midwest. That's true here as well. So just as a sort of point of reference, a lot of our customers would see on average about a 15-year payback for residential customers. Businesses are probably more than that most of the time. They have a different cost structure that kind of results in a longer payback. So just a sort of point of reference there. You can go ahead, Bridget. I mentioned our trade allies. So this is a group of contractors that we sort of vet and keep an eye on to make sure that they're accurately portraying costs and escalation rates and the benefits of going solar. So these are some of the requirements. They have to attend our training once every 3 years. Pretty much all of them go every year to our Trade Ally Summit, which we just had a few weeks ago. And they come learn about solar and how to put in applications and what our expectations are. Code of conduct, we have some requirements around what contractors can and can't do. Obviously, we have requirements around insurance, things like that. NABCEP certification. NABCEP is the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners, and they're essentially a certification board for solar installation and design. So we have to have, we require our trade allies to have a NABCEP certified install or a NABCEP certified design. We allow either of those. Physical address in OPPD's territory. So it says in territory, it's sort of near territory. We have a few in Lincoln, but the idea there is we want customers to be able to go in and have a conversation with these trade allies and try to keep kind of the Nebraskans' money spent within Nebraska as much as possible. So have to have been in business for at least 12 months. We want, kind of long-term businesses that plan to be here for the long haul and not just companies that kind of show up one day and leave a couple months later after they've installed a few systems. Generally, solar systems are pretty low maintenance. We don't usually have to clean them too much as long as it rains semi-regularly and the wind kind of keeps up, which it usually does around here. So there's not a lot of maintenance as far as that goes, but equipment can fail and stuff. So we want to make sure those warranties get included and that they can actually be honored. So, and then the last requirement is we just want people who are experienced essentially. So installers who know what OPPD's expectations are and can put in applications and get them approved in a timely fashion. Go ahead, Bridget. Mentioned solar rebates earlier. So these are $2,000 one-time rebate offered exclusively through our COG Trade Allies, and they're available on a first-come, first-served basis. We do or are planning to have budget for this next year. So those should be available in 2025 as well on a first-come, first-served basis. Don't expect to have issues running out of those, but if we do, it is first-come, first-served. There are some requirements associated with this, interconnected with our grid, obviously, so no standalone systems. 3 kilowatt minimum size, that's very small. Most of our systems that get installed at OPPD's territory are 7 to 10 kilowatts. So Bridget mentioned our Platteview Solar, which came online May of this year, 81 megawatts. So that's 81,000 kilowatts. So we're, orders of magnitude lower than that for what we're seeing for these residential installs. And then azimuths between 90 and 270 degrees, that just means that they're not north facing. So Jared mentioned earlier that there's a more ideal direction for solar to be placed, and that's generally south, will get the most production. And so we want to encourage the installers to install systems that are best for customers. And so we won't give rebates for north-facing systems. Lastly, I want to talk about our renewable choice program. So this launched last week. And this essentially allows customers to purchase renewable energy from OPPD's wind farms, which we have contracted through some wind farm owners in Nebraska. This is done through renewable energy certificates. Like I said, they're from generators in Nebraska. This year, they're likely going to come from Grand Prairie, which is the biggest wind farm in Nebraska, built in about 2016 that OPPD takes all of the energy off of. Price for this year is a penny per kilowatt hour. So an average residential customer uses about 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. So you're looking at about a $10 additional charge to participate in this program. Don't have to participate at the 100% level. You can participate at any point between 10 and 100% in 10% increments. So if you participated at the 50% level, then you'd average about $5 a month. Now that depends on usage. So if you're above or below average customer, then that's going to vary along with that. So that's just kind of a rule of thumb. Funds received from this program and also our renewable energy certificate program, which launched earlier this year, are being dedicated to carbon reduction projects at OPPD facilities. So looking to spend some money to kind of help reduce our scope 1 emissions even further. And if anybody wants to learn more about that, they can visit our website, oppd.com/renewable choice, and that's available to all of our residential and business customers.
All right, in summary, we just want to recognize the incredible opportunity of supporting the needs of our growing region. These are very exciting times. If you ask any of our ELT members or CEO or board, they will agree. Amidst our energy industry evolving and rapidly changing, we do recognize that this will take a lot of teamwork and partnerships as we plan and prepare for development in the future generation ahead. But we do appreciate you allowing us to come and speak today.
All right, thank you very much. I'm getting my video turned back on here. So as always, participants are welcome to send questions in through the Q&A section of Zoom. We've got a couple that have come in, and I'll give people time to add more questions. The one question I have is, you had this kind of adoption chart early on, and it like super spiked in 2022. Do you have like do you know why that happened and why it's obviously still larger than it was in 2021, but it kind of then dipped after that? Is there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can speculate a little bit. It's hard to know exactly, but I would say there's a mix of things going on there. So solar's been going down in costs consistently for, the last 10 to 15 years at least. And so we kind of hit a tipping point as far as where it can make sense under certain situations in the Midwest. So install costs have gone down so much that you can start to see a payback within the life of the solar system. So that was sort of inevitable, and it sort of, a lot of our customers became aware of it. There was a pretty big uptick in installers that were coming into the territory and installing systems. That's a big part of it. I think one of the main reasons that we're starting to see a downtick now is interest rates have gone up, or had been going up pretty significantly over the last 2 years to fight inflation. And a lot of these solar systems are financed. And so additional borrowing costs can kind of push out a payback significantly and result in fewer people wanting to do that. So
Yep.
A lot of things going on there.
Sure. Oh yeah, and I wouldn't expect you to have an exact answer, but yeah, all that seems to make some sense. Okay, so Ben asked, and this is I'm given the timing of the question based on something you said very early on. Why is economic demand called a need instead of a want? We need a livable climate. We want more electricity.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
From, I guess, OPPD's perspective, the one thing I'll say is we don't have a lot of choice in our ability to say no to customers. We have an obligation to serve under state law. So we can tell our customers or potential customers that, we can't serve them now, maybe due to capacity issues, but at the end of the day, if they have a viable project that they need electricity for, we will serve them as we're required to do. I think it's a really fair question and one that's bigger than OPPD certainly, but that's sort of our position in it.
Makes sense. Other outstanding question. What is, we got somebody sent a heart to that answer. So, good job. What is Don asks, what is the process for a home solar system to operate internally when power from the grid is out?
Yeah, really good question, Don. So that's something I didn't mention during my talk, but definitely worth mentioning. Solar systems alone won't provide backup power during an outage. So if the OPPD grid goes down, you won't be provided power from your solar system, generally speaking. And the reason for that is due to something called islanding. So if your system is producing while our grid is out, there's the potential that you're overproducing, at which point you could be pushing energy back onto our grid. And if we're not providing electricity, there's likely a problem that we're trying to fix. And so there's some potential hazard there for people that are working to fix the grid. And so we don't allow that. It's called anti-islanding, and that's pretty common throughout the Midwest. So that's sort of a preface, but then your question to how do you get backup power? And normally the answer is a battery, right? So you can have a battery system that can store some of that energy that you can then use a transfer switch or some other device to kind of disconnect you from the grid. And at that point, you're totally separate from us, and there's no way that you can push back power and you can have power during an outage. So batteries is the answer. Not necessarily solar related, but we do have a lot of customers historically and still do use diesel generation sort of to that same effect. So they can interconnect that with their home too, and they can disconnect from our grid. Sort of the same thing, obviously different systems, but that's generally how it's done.
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to sound like that guy. I'm totally in on solar. I wish I could do it here, but if you have solar at your house and you don't have a battery and you guys go out and it's nighttime, you're you're not going to be generating power for anybody. So yeah, that battery would system would need to be in there. One other question I have, and if you're unable to answer this, completely understandable, but I drive a plug-in hybrid Prius. And so can you speak to the difference of electricity usage over time as electric vehicles get more popular and more used?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So one of my colleagues is sort of our EV expert, but I talk to her regularly, so I can kind of keep up with what OPP is doing. At this point, we're at a position of monitoring and not doing much else. So we don't really have a great method, or didn't have a great method for tracking EVs. From our perspective, they're a load, right? We can't see what's going on behind a customer's meter, so it could be an EV or it could be a furnace or a stove or something. So we don't have a way inherently of knowing that. There's other ways to get that information through the state of Nebraska, because all those vehicles are registered, for one example. So we're keeping an eye on it. And there is a lot of discussion in the industry about what the future looks like for EVs and how that affects the grid, especially at kind of a local level, because if you and a lot of your neighbors are charging your vehicle at the same time, that could be a much higher load than what we would normally see in a residential area. So we may need to do upgrades to our transformers and stuff like that. It's just something, we're not at a point yet where we are having real issues with that. We have, a very small number of EVs within our territory. But it's something that we're definitely keeping an eye on.
Gotcha. Yep. Me and my neighbor. Mine's a plug-in hybrid. I think they have a pure EV next door, and I will say my bill went up barely, and I'm saving in gas, so I've definitely made it out there. So maybe if either of you could speak to what are the big challenges right now for OPPD from any perspective? What are the things you're trying to deal with?
I mean, I think the largest challenge of the company right now is that the net zero, at least for my team, We just went through an entire year of revising our strategic directive 7, how we're going to hit this and how we can hit it without compromising on any other areas, without compromising on the affordability as well as the reliability. We can add a bunch of renewable, but will that keep up our reliable energy at all times? So that is the question that we think about constantly.
Yeah, I would echo that. We're in a very unique situation, at least for recent history, of pretty massive growth as far as customer base and needs. So we're in a pretty large build out period. As Bridget mentioned, we're building some natural gas at the moment, adding a lot of renewables. So in the last couple of months, we've announced, I think, over a gigawatt of new renewable capacity that OPPD is sort of is now off taking. So there's a lot of building going on. Our customers are asking for a lot more energy, and so we have to grow to meet that need. And I think we're early, and we certainly are not the only utility that's going to have this. I don't want to say issue, maybe an opportunity, right? We're pretty large load growth and trying to do it in a way that is responsible.
We do have another question from the audience, but I'm going to kind of throw in the opposite of that. What are y'all excited about?
Bridget, you want to go first?
I'm trying to think of how to narrow stuff down and answer that out.
Big opportunities, like, yeah.
I would say we haven't mentioned this yet, but OPPD, in the midst of all this, is adding our new metering infrastructure that would give us a lot more visibility to kind of customer usage patterns. And the amount of data that we're talking about is absurd to me. There's a lot going into that. So just being able to see all of that stuff and allows us to make better decisions on how to best serve our customers. So I'm really excited to see sort of the output of all that work.
More data is always, to me, it's always good. I mean, you can make better decisions with more data. So yeah.
Oh yeah, you can never have too much data. I would say we're consistently analyzing new technologies and what could come of it. So that's always the exciting part.
Audience member asks, changing gears completely. What are the OPPD wood poles made from, and do they have creosote?
So Sam, unless you know, I cannot say confidently whether or not they have creosote in them, but I do know that we cannot burn them due to how they are treated. So we have been looking into different options for one, where are we buying wood poles, wood reels? The wood reels are really the issue, but I do believe we have found a potential solution with an auger. But also as we work to continuously improve our infrastructure, especially with these storms and just this year, how many wood poles were destroyed, where we are looking towards improving those, moving more towards steel, and just more permanent and stronger poles.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either, Bridget. My instinct tells me it's treated with something, considering that what it has to go through being buried and then being out in the elements. But that's a question I've never gotten before. I appreciate that.
We know it's treated. What it's treated with is unsure.
Gotcha. And it could have changed over the years too, like as different things apply. Okay. Another attendee asks, and apologizing if they missed this, does OPPD have plans to invest in solar and wind farming projects and utilize power purchase agreements, PPAs?
Yeah, Sam, I'll let your team deals quite a bit with that.
Yeah, great question. Yes, we do, and I suspect we will continue to do so. So we have, I want to say, 10 PPAs for wind assets today. We have 2 for solar assets, totaling about 86 megawatts. Platteview is 81. We have a community solar, which is 5. And I think now we are probably close to 13 to 1500 megawatts of wind within the state of Nebraska. I'm trying to keep up now. We've added several in the last just month or so that are sort of in development. Milligan 1 wind farm is 300 megawatts, south central Nebraska, that we just signed a PPA for a few months ago. So yeah, as far as what's coming, I suspect there will be more. We're going to continue to grow for the next 5 to 10 years, it seems like. So what that looks like exactly, I don't know. Under the IRA, there are provisions to allow public power entities to essentially take advantage of tax credits associated with renewable generation. So that sort of opened the possibility for direct ownership, which we're evaluating but haven't really made any decisions on. So possibly more PPAs in the future as well.
I got another question. I'm learning things. What, people say things about renewable energy and things that are like, once you know what you're talking about, yeah, maybe don't. What sort of myths or things are you running into that you have to kind of explain to people, like, that's not how it works? And like, here's the reality. What does that question make sense?
Yeah, I'll take that first on the customer side. We see a lot of kind of myths or discussions or questions around, well, Don mentioned it earlier, can I use my solar system when the grid is down? And the answer generally is no. There's ways to make that work with batteries, et cetera, but a solar system alone won't do that. So that's a very common one, and it's not sort of obvious. To most people, when you think you have something that's producing power in your home, you would expect it to be there when the grid is down, but it's just not the way it works. So that's one that's very common. The other is installing solar in Nebraska. One is a really good investment, and one doesn't make any sense. I hear both of those really regularly. I think it's somewhere in the middle, which is usually how it works. It's always in the gray area. So in some areas, depending on policies and things like that, the coast and stuff, you could see, 3-year payback, 3 to 5 year payback, which is pretty phenomenal. And in some places you could see, 20 plus, depending on sort of sunlight penetration and what you're paying for electricity. So we're somewhere in between. It can make sense in some cases, and a lot of cases it won't if you're looking at it purely from a financial perspective. Obviously, there's other reasons to install solar in your home, but those are some of the myths I hear a lot.
Yeah, I was unaware of the 15-year payback. I mean, I realize it's not, 100%, but that at least that's kind of a scale and a realistic, whether or not you want to invest in that. So, Bridget, is there anything from your side of things?
Yeah, I think in line with that, quite often I just hear that renewable energy will raise our rates, renewable energy is more expensive. And I think, as Sam said, it's kind of a middle of the road. It really depends on the scenario when, our gas plant makes more sense, or putting in a solar array makes more sense. It's just kind of a play by play. Each scenario is different.
I mean, a penny a kilowatt hour, at least from a homeowner's perspective, I'll do it.
Yeah.
I live in Lincoln, so like, I don't know exactly what my options are, but I am sure I checked whatever box I needed to get renewables, because I want to support that as much as I can. So, and they just tore down our windmills, but anyways, that's a completely separate story. All right. I'll give a kind of a last call to the audience if there's any more questions. In the meantime, Sam or Bridget, is there anything else you want to add that maybe popped into your head you'd like to sneak in before we wrap up?
I don't have anything, but we appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much for letting us speak.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for doing this for us. Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions in the Q&A. So we're a little ahead of schedule, which is fine. Nobody ever complains about that. So and it's kind of the lunch hour. So we're going to have a 20-minute break. We will be back at 1 o'clock. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you once again and pause for the recording.